Well, it's not every day you have a member of the Democratic Party publicly criticise their own president and boss. But that's what happened this week when Minnesota Congressman Dean Phillips took direct aim at Joe Biden by castigating his dismal polling numbers in a recent Politico article. As a member of House Democratic leadership, I supported and promoted the Biden agenda. I campaigned for him, voted for him, and respect him. But how can anyone read this and conclude he's positioned to defeat Donald Trump? It's delusional. Joe Biden's approval rating is bleak for a president at this time in their term, sitting on 38%, which is the lowest it has been since July last year. His predecessor and main rival, Donald Trump, has seen his approval rating rise to 47%, a similar result to when he was running in the 2020 presidential election. But while Dean Phillips' comments are unusual as someone who is a Democratic congressman, he is also now running for president and therefore must beat Joe Biden for the nomination. Congressman Phillips continued his takedown of the president by following up with a snide jab. I articulate plenty of differences and intend to share many more. The biggest difference will be my leadership style, accessible, engaged, and energetic in front of the press, answering questions and ensuring every voice in America is represented in the White House. In the last year, Dean Phillips has not been shy in voicing his desire for there to be new leadership in Washington to bring in a younger, fresher group of politicians to lead the country. But the 2024 presidential election is looking like it will see anything but fresh leadership. In fact, it could just be a repeat showdown between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Despite Dean Phillips' lack of confidence in the president's ability to beat Trump, polling between the two is actually quite tight. A new Morning Consult poll has found that if a hypothetical 2024 race was held today, 43% would vote for Joe Biden, while 42% would back Donald Trump. But we are now less than 1 year out from the 2024 presidential election, and this campaign season is looking like a far cry from the last. That has a lot to do with the fact that Donald Trump's approach to campaigning for the Republican nomination has seemed to be a laid-back version of 2020. He is holding fewer rallies, more courtroom appearances, and seems unthreatened by his Republican rivals. In fact, the former president has refused to partake in the last 3 GOP debates.
I think it's strategic right now because I think he believes he has the nomination sewn up, and so anything he does carries an inherent risk that could only serve to hurt him in the primary. I hold the opposite opinion. If he is such a confident candidate and so cocksure of himself, if he showed up to one of these debates and absolutely mopped the floor with his opponents, that would bring about an end to this. The primary continues mostly because he's refused to engage in it. All the polls if the election were held today, everybody would be surprised because the election isn't starting until January, the primary. So it doesn't matter. You don't win a football game at halftime. You win it at the end of the game. And he is acting as though he's already moved on to the next match. And it might work, but it might backfire badly because it can be used against him going forward. So his attitude is different than it has been in the past. He's running a little bit too cautious.
Where he did make an effort to command a crowd was at the UFC held at Madison Square Garden this month when he walked out with Kid Rock and Tucker Carlson, a move that could be seen as a way to create some presidential buzz.
I'm not really sure what the angle is there in being with Donald Trump. It would be nice if Trump were learning to play nice with people who don't reside in a patch of land kissing his rear end, that he did try to reach out to other people. I'm not sure Tucker is the way to reach out to other people in that sense, because the people who hate Trump hate Tucker too. But in general, it was harmless. It was fun. It's good for the ego. He didn't have a great week in court, so having a little bit of chanting your name and patting you on the back is a good thing. I just hope that he decides to actually run a presidential campaign rather than treat this like it's a coronation.
And while Donald Trump's rallies are usually packed with self-praise on how he performed as president and what he could do in 2024, they have also been inundated with tearing into America's politicized legal system. With 4 indictments hanging over the 45th president's head, his desire to take aim at those who put him in that position has only intensified. But do his loyal, everyday American constituents want to hear about that?
Again, it is the choir. If you're inclined to stand in line for hours on end to get into a stadium, an outdoor stadium in cold weather, to hear a guy complain about prosecutors going after him and judges deciding those cases and how everybody sucks but him, if you'd vote already in the general election 1 year from now for Donald Trump, you've got him. It's that what bothers me is that he's doing absolutely nothing to expand that. And there's a disconnect because the way that you throw red meat to those real fanatics turns off a lot of people.
And they indicted me for nothing. They indicted me. They indicted me for criticizing the election.
If all you see of him is standing outside a courtroom, playing the victim, talking about how they're coming to get him because he's standing up for you and they got to get to you through him, or a rally where he just complains nonstop about how he's been wronged and how he's going to correct all of the wrongs against him with the power of government when he returns to office, I don't think a family of 4 sitting around their kitchen table trying to, being concerned about how they're going to afford groceries really care whether or not Donald Trump goes after an obscure prosecutor they couldn't name in Georgia.
While Donald Trump does lead the polls for Republican contenders, his rivals are slowly creeping up in popularity. 538's average polling has Donald Trump sitting at 58%, Ron DeSantis on 13%, Nikki Haley on nearly 10%, and Vivek Ramaswamy on 5.4%. Despite Trump's evidently large lead over his opponents, is staying out of the limelight and letting the others gain momentum the right choice?
That gave Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley, who both I thought did a fine job, an opportunity to reach out to people who maybe aren't going to be able to help you necessarily in the primary, because if they're not registered Republicans, they probably can't vote depending on state laws, but in a general election and insofar as raising profiles. If Donald Trump had been there, so in that sense, I think he may have done a little bit of damage. No one event is going to be the tide turner in this, but we have 2 months left to go. I think people's curiosities about other candidates could have been piqued because of that. Not by many, it won't take that many. And we'll see how it plays out. But I think it was a mistake because, like I say, Donald Trump he's doing what, one rally every couple of weeks now. That's not a presidential campaign. That's a pep rally for your high school football team.